Mary Bess and Kelly.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. It's exciting. This is the first time we've done this as a team. And I'm very excited about that. You know, you might wonder why somebody gets involved in bird watching, and for me, it was not a matter of choice. I was forced. As a child, before I had any part in the decision making, they'd use us as a decoy. They'd send us out in the muddy flats and get us to flush the birds.
Why would I go out?
And I love bird watching, and we got, Mom she started it when we lived in Kansas, and I was probably in about 6th grade or 7th grade, and we enjoyed it then, but then I kind of got a little complacent about it, and so I got into my 20s, and suddenly started realizing what a beautiful thing this was, what a wonderful, ongoing hobby this could be. And I got reinvigorated, and now, and my wife and I, my wife's on a trip right now, she's going to be joining us as well, Donna. It's a big part of our lives. And we do programs for children, constantly in the public schools, and we really enjoy that, mostly 3rd and 4th graders. So don't do a lot of adult programming, but see if I can adapt to that with Mom's help. She'll pitch in whatever. Now, one thing I know for sure is that this is a pretty sophisticated audience, and that many of you, I know that most everybody in here is pretty mindful of the birds and keeping an eye on the birds. And so some of this will be under your level, and hopefully you'll learn some things. But in bird watching, of course, we all have the opportunity to go out on field trips and get into serious bird watching, trying to find woodland birds and field birds and water birds and shore birds and all that. Now, we can't possibly tackle that in a class of this duration. So what we're going to do is we're going to target backyard birds. We're going to keep it simple. We'll try as hard as we can. This list of backyard birds is even a little blurry. I mean, is a crow a backyard bird? Is a broad-winged hawk a black? When you see a hawk in your yard, is it a backyard bird? We have to define the line somewhere. Right. And also, I know that we have very mixed habitats. Some of you live, like I live in central Fayetteville, very, very tightly wooded, lots and lots of invasives, honeysuckles and privets, and so there's lots of hiding places. So I get a certain assortment of birds. Mom, on the other hand, her house is in more of a suburb setting, at least the front of the house is. So she's got a wide open yard with a lawn, and she gets another assortment of birds. And so I'm sure, and some of you might even be rural. You might have a pond. You might have a big field. So that's going to give another assortment of birds. Somehow or another, there is a universal list that we all share. And that's what we're going to try to focus on. We do have nests here. Well, when we have a nest, I'll try to talk about the song. We're going to talk about when the bird lives here, trying to demystify some of those things. What goes on in the winter, what goes on in the summer, what their migratory pattern is, what they eat, what their nest looks like if we have it.
And if anybody has a story to share.
That's true. And so, I think we thought maybe the best way to start would be to, by the way, I wanted to mention a little bit more about backyard birds, why I think they're so important, and sometimes overlooked by people who are bird watchers. Because you can get into the bird watching thing and it becomes this kind of a acquisition of lists, But what happens in we have to admit, no matter how avid you are as a bird watcher, 90% of your bird watching is looking out your kitchen window, and seeing your feeders, and seeing what's going on out there. And there's so much to learn about that. Just that part, I never get tired of that. It's like, we don't have television in our house, but I always joke that is my television. I just watch that continually, and I never get tired of it. It's always changing.
Well, I was sitting on the front porch waiting for somebody, and I was ready to sit in the house. I sat on the front porch. And in the next 15 minutes, I had almost 20 species of birds. And And it's only because I was watching and moving that they're there every day. I didn't realize that's huge. And that started.
So maybe a good way to start it. You notice up here on these boards, we have 3 categories. And summer and winter, and then all year. Now, there's a good bunch of these birds that are here all year. And but we thought it would be helpful to you, if we could make a list and put them in the right place. And I'm hoping that you guys can give us a list. So I'm thinking, let's just start. There's a certain little list of birds that are going to be in all of our yards. Robin, okay, the American robin. That's all year.
Cardinal.
We're going to go back and talk more specifically. Cardinal. Slow down here. Our scribe. House sparrow. Okay, let me make sure you get these in the right house sparrow, which is the English sparrow.
Goldfish.
Goldfish, that's year round.
Purple finch.
Purple finch I'm going to leave off because the purple finch is very, very not common and it's very difficult to identify, and just for our purposes today we'll leave it alone. House finch. Yeah, house finch. What's it? Wrens. Okay. Which wrens do we have? The Carolina and winter wren. We have winter wren. I'm not going to use for backyard birds so much. That's a good one. What other winter wren do we have? I'm sorry, summer. What? I'm sorry. What other summer wren do we have? House wren. So.
Mary Bess, you look like Vanna Lake.
I used to do this for Paige. I would always say, at least he doesn't make me wear a tutu.
Well, Kelly, get on the mark.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we still got a ways to go. I heard somebody say
The dove.
okay, blue jay and morning dove.
That ashes and titmouse.
I think you got these in now. Very good. Actually, it's the Carolina chickadee here. There's a lot of confusion about that. The black-capped chickadee and the Carolina chickadee are pretty much identical, only known by their song. And in this region, it's the Carolina chickadee. Sorry? The collared dove, that's an invasive. Yeah, that's a good one. It is all year. I think. They're moving in. They're moving in. I imagine they're all year.
The woodpecker.
The white, very good. White red nuthatch. Now, what is the nuthatch that we might see in the winter? Red. The ringneck dove and the collared dove.
How about the hummingbirds?
Okay, that's another. That'd be a summer.
Sometimes winter.
Woodpecker.
And we haven't even touched the woodpeckers yet. It doesn't matter. Yeah, right. If there doesn't feel like you keep up with it.
But you don't hummingbirds.
Somebody said,
Ruby.
okay. Well, these are hard to write.
Thank you.
We have chickadee. That's the Carolina chickadee.
We're going to do woodpecker.
Woodpeckers. What do we have for woodpeckers? Red belly. Parrot. And the hairy. Okay, thank you. Catbird. What is it? Summer.
That's Kelly's favorite.
Oh. He's putting that one on summer.
Mockingbird.
There's one other woodpecker I want to put on that list.
Very.
That's right, the northern flicker.
You might find a chocolate whale, you wouldn't find a whippoorwill, a chocolate whale. Yeah, you need the red. I had one on my roof. Well, they look very similar, and it's only a small amount of, the whippoorwill says, whippoorwill says, whippoorwill, I know you right there. And the other one is Chuck Will.
What about the ones that are very topical and say wiener?
Oh, that sounds like almost like it sounds more like a woodpecker. Like that's a affiliated woodpecker. Maybe.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Could y'all please speak a little louder, and then I've had 2 requests for the sheet that you hand out. Do you have any more?
Yeah, and anybody who can't hear also could come up closer, because we have some seats up here.
I didn't have one of these for everybody.
Brown
okay.
If somebody would cut off the air, we could hear better. It's nice and cool outside.
Bluebird? Yeah, the bluebird is all year round, but they're in the summertime, they're a lot more visible, and they're very drab in the wintertime. And they go bunting. I'm not sure much of that is a backyard bird, but, you know, it is. It is all year. And of course, that would be a summer bird. Yellow belly. Yeah, okay. All right, let me. I just heard a really good winter bird mention the yellow-bellied sapsucker. That's a fun one.
Goose.
All right, there we go, dark-eyed junco. And that's a winter bird. What's the other winter bird? It's on the ground all the time. That's it.
Goose.
Well, that is the white-throated sparrow.
White crown sparrow.
Rasher? I'm sorry?
That blackbird he just comes and they come on yards like thousands.
Probably so. They're common grackle. They're common grackle.
How much is that of it?
Well, let me talk about that. I will talk about that. Let me catch up a little bit. I've got confused.
Goose.
Yeah. We must be missing something. I know we're talking the brown thrasher. That's important. The brown thrasher is honestly is a year-round bird here, but I'd rather put it in summer because that's when you're going to see it. And so just know that I'm putting it in summer, even though they're not real. They're all year round.
What about Phoebe Eagle?
Phoebe? Yeah. That's summer. Although the Phoebe's actually year-round as well. Don't expect to see them in winter.
How about roadrunners?
Well, I don't think of that as a backyard bird.
Not backyard.
That's one of those, I'm going to have to draw the line somewhere. I mean,
White birds are orioles.
well, they're,
Summer. But they pass through, but they do nest in summer.
the orchard oriole, if you have a pond, you're likely to have orchard orioles all in the summer. The Baltimore oriole is the one that passes through and likes fruit. So
Anybody know a bird that says, where are you? Oh, here.
now this list. That's true. Well, you know what? Why don't we start with that? Even though that's not a backyard bird.
It's mine.
Well, it is.
How about the cedar waxwing or the...
Okay. Well, we donate the other one here, but yeah, the cedar rice wing is certainly, now the cedar rice wing again is all year long, but, winter is when we associate it in our backyard. Yeah, I'm gonna put on that. Now, I'm sure there's more, we could keep going, and I'm sure we may add a couple more here, but I'm happy with this as a starting place. So, now what I want to do is I want to talk about these birds, and get a little more specific about it, because obviously, you're aware of most of these birds. I don't have a PowerPoint thing today, because I hate computers and all that junk. And I wish everybody had a bird book in there, you know, I could just make you all look them up. But I do have a few pictures that we use with children, that we may drag some of them out. First of all, let's start with something simple. Let's start with, how about let's start with the robin. The robin is something everybody knows about, but there's more to it than meets the eye. I do have a robin's nest, and after the program, you're welcome to come up and look closely. The robin's nest is famous for its ingredients of sticks, mud, and grass. And then also it improvises, and this one has plenty of improvisation with the little Easter egg basket fuzz, and paper towels, and there's some plastic sheet in there. It's kind of a hodgepodge.
You might tell them where you have nests mostly.
Most of these came from Joe Neal. And he very generously donated his collection to Don and I to use in schools.
And then Doug James.
And Doug James has helped too. And people give me that sometimes, and Doug James recently identified some of them for me best he could. And so we have expanded. By the way, you know, we use these for the classroom, and this is typical in a bird book, a range map. And the range map, I just can't emphasize how important the range map is. That's really, to me, that's the first thing I look at in a bird book. Does this bird live here? This shows in the three colors, the red being summer, purple being all year long, and then the blue being the winter only. And so, obviously, Arkansas is in a year-long range. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about with the robin that many of us might not understand is that it's not a migratory bird, but it does move around. And the robins that you have in your yard right now are not going to be here in the winter. You'll have a different population. And they may be from some neighboring state, they may be very close by in Arkansas, but their behavior in the summer and in the winter is completely different. In the summer, they pair up, they're doing their nesting, and they're feeding on the ground. They're eating insects or eating worms, as we know, we've all observed. But in the wintertime, they band together in small flocks. And there'll be 20 or 15 robins together, and what they're eating is what? Berries. They turn into berry eaters in the wintertime. And if you really want to have robins in your yard, one of my favorite things in my yard is my water bath. I have a nice little heated water bath on my back porch. I see it from my breakfast table. And one of my most joyous things is in the wintertime is the robins. There'll be like a dozen robins. And they're all just love my water bath, and you can see the steam coming off. And they'll stay there all day long. And then occasionally they'll leave for a little bit, and the cedar waxwings come in, and they take their place. And they also love the water bath. And so I get more in the wintertime. I get more mileage out of my water bath than I do my feeders. It's just really exciting. And the cedar waxwings come and go. The cedar waxwings are also berry eaters in the wintertime, and so they often hang out with the robins. And they'll drift around in the neighborhood looking for good berries.
You know, robins go around with their head cocked like this. That's because they're ground feeders, but they're also I can't do it.
Monovision?
Yeah, and so they can't.
It's not stereoscopic.
It always has his head down.
Most birds are like that.
Yes.
Stereoscopic vision.
But when they're ground feeders, that's the habit of yes.
Right, people talk about it if they're listening to the word.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
I have a question. In Iowa, we have a lot lot of cedar wax, but that was a high bush transit, or that was called. But that doesn't grow here very well, I believe. So what is, I don't seem to have get very many cedar wax.
Well, you know, one thing they really is privet berries when they're reach a certain place. You know, I'm not sure what limits. There's a lot of berries in those first. Yeah. Juniper berries.
They'll eat that awful
Now,
bush honeysuckle.
when you have cedar waxwings, the first thing, if your hearing is good, the first thing you'll hear when a cedar waxwing is in your yard is this. It's higher than that.
It is real peepy. I know immediately when it's there.
Now, some of us can't hear it anymore, I'm afraid. That's when your hearing starts to decline, the first thing that goes is the cedar waxwing. That's a shame, but it's true. It's true. I've lost that, and another one that you lose is the black and white warbler. But luckily, my wife Donna still has a good ear. The robin, by the way, is a very vocal singer in the springtime. They have a very sing-songy call. If you bird book, you know, they use, as you probably know, they use words to describe calls. And it's for the robins. If you look in the bird book, they would typically say cheerio, cheerily, cheery up, tut tut tut, intermixed. And it's a very aimless call. It sounds like it's constantly being improvised. It's like a
Very good.
Yes, the rabbits would eat the earthworm or the regular bug.
The earthworm is a favorite food for them in the summer. Of course, in the wintertime, the earthworms go down too deep and the ground's too hard, and then that's when they become berry eaters. Yes.
You get some really weird robin calls when they get those fermented berries.
There are many stories of drunken robins and
In fact, the cedar waxwing, when we lived in Hilton Head 9 years, they died from being too drunk.
When we lived in Dallas, we had the red pyracantha berry, and the cedar waxwings would be laying all over the ground to get the cats in. I mean, they were blood. Wow.
How serious is this Mandina berry in terms of killing, cedar waxing?
Can anybody answer that? I'm not.
Well, there's just an article out on that, and that's been circulating, and
I'm not privy to that.
It shows that it produces cyanide immediately, and the death is quick.
Oh.
So it should be outlawed for science.
Right. That's negatively publicized. Let me keep moving on our list. So, if to get to this list, I just have to keep moving, and we want to talk about feeding and a few things at the end too. But let's cover a couple other birds. You know, just real briefly, the cardinal is something everybody knows, and the cardinal, once again, there's a different behavior in the winter. They do. Have you ever noticed in the backyard there'll be 8 male cardinals?
Yeah.
You know, you would never see that in the summertime. There's a very strong territorial behavior in the summertime. It's because you've got a different batch of cardinals, just like you have a different batch of robins. And they have banded together and they're feeding together. They're in a winter flock, and so they find that advantageous in terms of foraging for food. The cardinal is, of course, year-round, very familiar bird, and its call is beautiful. They have a lot of variations in their call. It moves, it changes from one week to another all spring. And I've been trying to break this code for many years now, but I'm constantly surprised by it. But it has a little assortment, and you'll notice that all the cardinals in the neighborhood are singing the same song at the same time, but then it'll shift to a slightly different song, and they keep doing that together. One of the typical will be the like, what you hear? What you hear? Or, pretty bird, pretty bird. And a very brilliant call. Sometimes it's better to tell a bird's call by its tone than it is by the song itself, because they also have like, it's a whole different melody, but it's still got that real strong, vibrant tone. And the only other bird that can challenge it would be the wren.
Why do they call it northern bird?
Or the wren, or maybe it's...
Why do they call it northern when it's all in the south?
Kind of question? Yes.
So, I have a cardinal, or maybe more than one, that pets my windows like crazy.
Okay.
And it drives me insane. And he disappeared for a while, and I wonder if he's back, or is it a new fella? And what is it like in Sam?
That's a great question. Most of the backyard is different for every species, but a lot of backyard birds, their lifespan in captivity might be 7 years. In the wild, it's probably more 2 or 3. It's very dangerous out there. All kinds of weather events can kill them, or cats, or disease. So birds, 2 or 3 years is probably average for a songbird, but whereas they certainly can live 5 to 6 years if they're lucky.
They say, though, he's attacking this bird for his territory. He sees himself in the window, and he does that. And
Me too, and I haven't scared him off yet.
I've never really read anything that explains it completely. I've hunted for things for the marriage to cover their windows.
We did solve our problem. We have this cute kitten, and we put a cat tree there, and somehow that ruby, it's like, he's like, I don't want to attack the other red bird because the cat will eat me. I don't know.
That's clever.
Yeah, you really did stop it. So.
People tried everything. That's a constant problem. But it's just, they just don't understand the reflection. House sparrow, I don't need to spend too much time with that. The house sparrow certainly will come to the backyard, my mom's yard, never my yard. Well, no, I have one. But they tend to like a little more open area. This is the house sparrow is most commonly seen walking around in the Walmart parking lot. It's an invasive, of course, brought to America almost 100 years ago, and now they're everywhere, just like a starling. And house pigeons like it, yes.
Except the bird that builds its nest on my house.
It could. They build in the eaves. They're cavity dwellers. They like to build in like where the like the goldfinch. That's year round. But in the wintertime they're very drab birds. They eat thistle. So if you get thistle feeder, the skinny feeder with the Niger in it. That's how you're going to get goldfinches. In the summertime, they turn into these beautiful yellow and black birds, canaries. They're just incredibly vibrant birds. Their noise, their song is a very complex song that I can't possibly reproduce. But they have a call note that's more familiar. You don't hear the song except very early spring, But the chip note, or the call, you hear it a lot. I heard it a lot today in my mom's yard. It's a whistle like that. And sometimes they're right. It's a little faster than that. I can't do all the calls accurately with my mouth. I have the recorder here if I want to make additions. But it's not really known for its by its call.
When it flies, it goes choo, choo, choo.
And they make these little chipping sounds. The house finch, that's a kind of a strange. That used to be only a western bird, and it was introduced to the east in the early 20th century, and it spread its range, and now it's in all 48 states.
The reason it was used as a caged bird is because of its color and its song and stuff. And then they made laws that they couldn't cage it anymore, so there it is, all over the state.
The house finch is another one that changes its plumage dramatically from winter to summer. It's in the wintertime it's drab, just like the goldfinch. And in summertime they get brilliant red parts on their front, and some of them are quite striking. I'm a little bit worried about the house finch. It's relatively explosive, I think you might even say. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, and I don't really know the data, but it is definitely on the march, you know, and it could be a bad thing if it goes too far. They already have real problems with conjunctivitis outbreaks in the house finch population. You'll see them occasionally at your feeder that have damaged eyes. Their eyes are kind of closed, and it's just really sad. And you're not supposed to. The first time I saw one, I tried to save it, and I was reprimanded and told that that's not what you're supposed to do because that's fighting the genetic pool in the wrong direction.
So it's like, is it viral syphilis, or is it?
I guess so.
I mean, so, because I had that, we had a whole bunch of them one summer.
Yeah.
And
I haven't seen it as much lately.
right, this year, but I mean, should we clean our feeders?
That's exactly. Cleaning the feeders is the key. You don't want it to spread, but you don't want to save that bird because it needs to go out of the gene pool. Not a happy thing. Okay, Carolina wren. I love the wren. The wren is a busy little guy. We do have a Carolina wren nest, typical. You know,
A hollow down in there, it's almost like a little tunnel.
they love to build nests. Their song is described as the tea kettle. Sometimes a three-syllable thing. You'll hear a lot of that. Many, infinite variations on that. It's just like, it's really maddening. But I'm always surprised. If there's ever a bird that I go out there and, what is that bird? What's that bird? Well, it's Carolina. Even though I've been doing bird calls for a long time, occasionally I still get tricked by Carolina. It's a real voice, loud, penetrating song. Once again, best known for its tone quality.
So clear.
It's very clear. It really breaks through.
What about the house wren? How do they relate?
Oh yeah, thank you. House wren. You know what? That's one that I really like to use my recorder for.
You had a lot of those on the back fence. Yeah, they had it in that house.
Because I cannot make that sound. And it is a bubbly sound. I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because it's a really good song and easy to hear.
I had a mailbox that they built in, and she had one brood, and then she built and added to it and had another brood, and then she was working on it, and I had a lecture. I went out and I said, listen, I'm calling the Planned Parenthood. You go through with this again.
This is the song. See what I want to do that. I think of it as a bubbly song. That whatever works for you is what you would think. How do you describe that?
Well, what do you call it when they actually
Fussing.
fussing? Because if they have a nest in there, my gosh, if you go toward it, or you don't even know you're going toward it, and all of a sudden, every wren in the area is
Now, well,
fussing.
the Carolina wren has a fussing call, which is.
And it's just like a real annoying little buzz.
Strangely enough, that same bird that's going is also going. I don't associate the house wren as a fusser. I mean, they're less interactive. The Carolina wren is the one that's really interactive. It's the one that's on you, whatever. People always, yes.
You do whale song.
Ah!
Whale song.
Oh, there we go.
Whale.
Oh, yeah. You say quail. Oh, I thought you said all right. Bob White? And sadly enough, that's a song that is disappearing. And if you ever want to have some evidence to be concerned about species decline, it's Bob White. Yeah, it's really sad, but the cabin up where our Beaver Lake cabin, you know, the quail used to be something you heard all the time, and I haven't heard one there in years. And, so that's not good. It's a habitat problem. So we got to go blue jay. What family is a blue jay? Crow. The crow. It's a corvid. That's really important to remember. The crow, the blue jay, even though it looks nothing like a crow, that explains everything. First of all, it explains why it's so aggressive. It's far more intelligent than the other birds. It has a vocabulary. It's not a song, it's a vocabulary. They're actually a list of sounds, and they all have a certain meaning. And it's not just aimless like other birds just make this sound. It can be territory, it could be that they're trying to defend their territory, or it could be that they're trying to find a mate, but they're using the same song to our ears. This bird's not like that. It has a tremendous vocabulary. And everybody, some people hate them because they eat eggs, but how many of y'all eat eggs? And also just to remind you that...
I don't eat baby birds.
And well, but here's another thing about this bird, is it's been around for millions of years. And things work out pretty good. So don't be too concerned about all the meanness that's going on in the backyard, because this is part of the balance. Just like the cowbird, the eye's sad, there's laying eggs and under everybody's nest. That's just part of the balance. Personally, I love these guys. They're fascinating. Yeah.
Are those some of the birds that kick the eggs from another bird's nest out and then puts it on its ground?
No, that would be the cowbird. And the cowbird is a parasitic nester. By that, it deposits its eggs. I have a bluebird nest that actually shows the cowbird nest in it. The bird, the mother will try to raise them all, and the cowbird, being a larger species, will often kick the other babies out or dominate the food that comes in. It's the most aggressive, and so the other babies die. It sounds cruel. It's been going on for millions of years. Yes. Did you have something?
Yes. You said the blue jay has a large vocabulary. Does it say pretty?
No, I wouldn't describe that as one of those calls. The blue jay's vocabulary is worth listening to real quick. It's just absolutely beautiful. And mind-boggling how...
I think they're fun. The blue jays fun because they get together in the backyard and start talking.
So do the crows.
That's what the crows.
Yeah, the
They
crows.
were discussing my neighbor the other day.
Listen, some of the towards the end, guys, it's amazing how the virtuosity of the blue jay vocally is quite astounding. Get straight. Sorry about that. My favorite is still coming. My favorite is the squeaky wagon with a broken wheel. Well, that, by the way, what you heard right there, this is their imitation of a red-shouldered hawk. Yeah. So that's quite an assortment, and very few birds can match that. Yeah, except crows.
I've been told that a lot of blue jays have been exterminated by bird flu. They've
That's
been
right.
absent for
The
like
corvid
7
family.
years, and they're just starting to come back.
That's true. The corvid family is most, I think the bird flu, I'm not a scientist, but the bird flu is focused on the corvid family. So that would include magpies, blue jays, crows. Somebody mentioned the mimics, the mockingbird. What are the other mimics? Everybody knows the mockingbird. There's two others over in our backyard. Brown thrasher and Catbird, my favorite. Okay, now I wanted to talk about those a little bit because the catbird is my favorite. The brown thresher's my dad's favorite. And yeah, the mockingbird, there's another one a lot of people don't like because they're aggressive, but that's their nature. It's real easy to tell those three bird songs apart. The mockingbird, of course, is well known for their virtuosity, but actually, it's got the smallest repertoire of those three mockbirds. Okay? It always sings its songs 3 or 4 times. So that's the key. You'll hear it'll be like. And it just goes, or sometimes 4, but they're always in these sets. And by the way, the mockingbird is what was it eat? Primarily. Well, at least a couple things. First of all, I should berries. It loves berries. It also eats insects. And they're kind of versatile, but berries is his favorite. I love that these from my service berry with bloom.
Is the mockingbird the only bird that'll mock you? You know, I've whistled at them and they'll match it.
There's a lot of talk about them matching local sounds. When I travel, it's real easy to hear the variation of the mockingbirds in each state have a whole different repertoire. And it is regionally based, and it is true that there's lots of reports of them doing cell phone sounds and
I heard
urban sounds.
Yeah, I had a peach-faced lovebird. Well, I raised them, but the mother was the last of my lot. And in California, she could live outside in the summer. And the mockingbird, it was like all of a sudden she had a friend again.
Oh.
You know, he'd come by a couple times a day and talk to her, and she'd talk back.
Well, down south, the mockingbird says "you all" in their song.
I like that. So the brown thrasher, now the brown thrasher is a real treat. In this early springtime, the brown thrasher will emerge. And by the way, the brown thrasher likes a lot of cover. So if you got too much manicure going in your lawn, you're not likely to have one. They need a lot of cover. They like the edge of the woods. They're typically on the ground, and they sing all of their songs twice, very predictably. So they're in pairs. Everything's in pairs. And the catbird, that's another, they call the catbird a skulker. Skulking is a nice word. What it likes is a real intense thicket of honeysuckle and privet and all the wildness. It likes that real thicket of growth. And they don't like it to be too cleaned up. They're kind of secretive birds. And they also like berries and insects. And their song is they sing everything just once. And it's all strung together. There's almost no pause between these different songs. And they sing a little longer than the brown thrasher. The brown thrasher, very disappointingly, seems to finish its whole singing cycle in about 2 weeks, maybe 3, which is very disappointing because it's gorgeous. The brown thrasher, the catbird is a migratory bird that is absolutely not here in the winter except a couple times. A couple sightings. But they arrive in the spring, and when they arrive, they're singing. It's beautiful. It sounds kind of like this. Yep. They have the largest repertoire. They say there's up to 1,500 different sounds. The brown thrasher is around 250. Mockingbird is somewhere around 125, 150. So, wonderful birds. The white-breasted nuthatch is an important little bird that's in all of our yards. That has a very unmusical call, but it's very easy to hear. That's a good one. And by the way, that's year-round. But a real prize for a backyard birder is to observe the red-breasted nuthatch in the wintertime. And certain winters, they're quite prevalent. And they like to come to cedars. So I love that when they happen. What is it? the chickadee, everybody knows the chickadee, but I want you to also listen for its song. That's the call note. That's not a song. Birds have songs and they have call notes. Sometimes the call note is just this. Like a cardinal doing that. But the chickadee does have a beautiful song, and it only sings it when it's in that kind of breeding mood. And it's got a very beautiful piping song. Usually 4 syllables. Real high. It reminds me of the tone quality of one of my favorite singers, and I bet you all know this one, the white-throated sparrow. This is a bird that almost all winter long is on the ground underneath your bird feeder. Not likely to be on the bird feeder, but on the ground. And they have little whites underneath their chin. And they sing a song that all of us have heard, but probably didn't know what it was. It's so gorgeous. It goes like this. See the Tubbs titmouse. That's a very, very all year long resident at our bird feeders, and it has a beautiful, very vibrant song. It has 2 different songs primarily. One is it goes quee quee quee. How do you spell that? P-W-E-H. Quee quee. And it's like this. And also this one. Heard that? That's kind of a familiar sound to you.
That's one Peter, that says Peter.
In other words, the Peter is how they say. The woodpecker family is real hard for me to imitate, but I can kind of help a little bit. In the red belly, the most common sound the red belly makes is this. It's like. Okay, that's the red-bellied woodpecker. The downy is a little bitty one, and of course the hairy is the larger version of the downy. Virtually identical except in size. The downy, that's a hard one to make sound. It goes beep, beep. I don't have time to play the thing, but it's kind of a whinnying, like a horse whinnying. Like that. It descends. I can't do it yet. The northern flicker. Now that's a bird that's a ground feeder typically. It's a very different kind of woodpecker. It likes suet, but it's naturally a ground feeder. The numbers are declining, especially in the summer. In the wintertime, they flock together, strangely enough. Woodpeckers flocking together. They're in groups of like 6 to 10, and they'll feed in lawns. You'll see them in a grassy lawn. And sometimes it's really easy to overlook them, but there'll be like 6 of them walking around the grass.
Is that the yellow shafted or
the yellow shafted flicker in this region.
We can't see both.
The red shafted is a western, but the same species. Okay. I used to think it's 2 species. Its main call is clear, clear, and it goes whistle. It goes. I can't make the sound, but it goes. A singular note. It goes clear, clear. Okay. And the red. I don't really think of the populated as affiliated. You could say it either way. As a backyard bird, but if you live in a forested area, you'll get them. And they have that beautiful. They sound like they're from the Amazon basin. You know. Yeah. They sound like you'd expect a giant woodpecker to sound.
You should have seen it on the cedar. We had a cedar that was up this thing around, and here this big pileated or pileated woodpecker was holding on upside down like this, and you know how long their beaks are, and he was sticking his beak through the top part of the cedar. It's the only way he could get the food, but he hung there upside down like that as long as he could get the
Sure.
Black oil sunflowers out.
Right.
And then off you went.
We're gonna talk about, real briefly, we're gonna talk about feeding in a minute here. We're almost through this list, not quite. The dark-eyed junco and the white-throated sparrow, I think of them as they're a winter ground feeder. And both of them are gonna be underneath here. You won't hear any noise from the dark-eyed junco. They don't sing, they make little tiny calls. That's because it's winter, you know, most of the birds don't sing in the winter. I want to make sure that there's one of the most astounding facts that is that I wonder if you all realize that the females don't sing the songs, except for the cardinal. The cardinal is one of I think the only North American bird where she sings the songs. But the rest of them, the females are relegated to callings. How that ever happened. But strangely enough, the white-throated sparrow does sing in the winter. Almost all winter long, you'll hear that. Yeah. Send Peabody. I think have we kind of made it through this? We must have missed a couple of things. The bluebird is only going to occur if you have some open area in your yard. I don't have any bluebirds. My mom does. The bluebird has a most unspectacular call. People kind of romanticize the bluebird, but its song is not, to me, something that it doesn't do it justice. It's a real drab call. It comes out of this.
But I think of it as very quiet and peaceful. I really enjoy it.
It's a gentle call. Yeah, they're having trouble because they're not aggressive, and there are several people that like those. They're a cavity dweller. And the English sparrow and the house sparrow is liable to get their hole before they do. And the house wren. So that's a problem.
I've had good success in my backyard with 2 boxes. Keeping as long as I tear the sparrow's nest out religiously.
Yes.
I get 2 families of bluebirds every year, and they have at least 2 breeds.
That's nice. All the cavity dwellers are having a hard time. They're having to adjust. Quite a few of these are cavity dwellers. Even like the chickadee and the titmouse and the white-breasted nuthatch. There's an amazing number of cavity dwellers, and most of these birds are not capable of drilling holes in the trees. They have to use something that pre-exists. And humans have this nasty habit of cutting down anything after it dies, right? That's really been a problem.
I don't cut them down.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about the habitat in your backyard briefly, because we're going to run out of time, and I can do this all day long, but I know you all can't.
And I have one bird that I used to live in central Arkansas and never saw before I moved up here.
Yeah.
And I taught in Springdale for 13 years, and every year I would see the scissor-tail flycatchers.
And they've been
on the side of the road, and I almost ran off the road the first time I saw it.
Yeah, right.
I was going, what?
And that's it. One really beautiful thing is the scissor-tail flycatcher is on the move. They are really doing good. And I see them now downtown at big intersections. They really are expanding their range. They used to be much more prevalent in the open prairie and Oklahoma and stuff, and now they're just everywhere. And that's really good. That's a bird that's doing well. There's been a lot of movement in birds. It's not a static thing. It's always moving. It's climate changes, and habitat changes. A lot of birds in my lifetime, like the fish crow. Have you ever noticed that now we have 2 crows? And we used to, in the summertime, we have a new crow show up called the fish crow. They look exactly alike, but they sound nothing. The American crow, which we all know, caw, among 100 other sounds. The fish crow has this very kind of like a baby crow thing. So that's otherwise. Yeah, some people think. But I have my mom and I both have worked real hard on both of our yards to attract birds. And it's true. I heard a conversation before this event about planting good bird-friendly species. That's very important. But what I think is even more important is the arrangement of cover in your yard, or lack of cover, and the kind of feeder. my own yard, you know, partly just because of where I live, is lots and lots of cover. I don't have any trouble with aerial predators, because there's plenty of, they can't get in there quick enough before everybody sees them and they're all, whereas my mom's yard is constantly being swooped on by a sharp-shinned hog, because there's plenty of visibility out there. But she has a nice mixed habitat. There's nothing, I can't emphasize the joy of having a water feeder enough. And there's a heated water feeder. You might think that's exorbitant, but it's not. It is not, because you have to keep it from freezing somehow.
On Amazon, it's $56.40.
I just absolutely love mine. It takes a little bit of work every 2 or 3 days. I take it off of there and take it inside and scrub it off, get the algae off, and I put it back out there and put a couple of liters of water in there. It's a lifestyle thing, but once you make that decision, I guarantee you, it pays off. The birds absolutely love it, and it's very important that you put it close and where you sit. Wherever it is in your house that you sit, make sure it's in good view so that you can really enjoy it to the most. And that goes along with your feeders too.
The one we have melts on the railing.
It's pretty easy to mount. Melts onto a 2x6 railing.
I had 40 of these made, so couples don't take 2 of them. These are the feeders that Kelly and I have, and the cost of them on Amazon, which is really a lot.
Are feeders good or bad? I think of food stamps.
Okay.
You know, for birds.
You know what? You just raised it.
You know, it makes them dependent on you. And if you stop feeding them, what happens to them?
I've asked that question to the people that I respect most. And the answer I get from like Joe Neal, Joe Neal happens to live a block from me. And and we're good friends. And he says, feed away. And I worry about the fact that all the babies are learning to eat out of a feeder, and like, what are they going to do when they get into the real world? You know, these are good questions. All I know is that I keep asking these questions, and everybody says feed away. And I don't think you're hurting anything. You know, the fact is, human beings are incredibly invasive on the bird population already. Everything, your house is a problem for them, your parking lot. Everything that we do is damaging the birds. Maybe feeding is a way of paying back, you know, helping counteract all the things that we do that damage birds' ability to thrive. And I just get so much enjoyment out of it. Now, I have a mix of 3 different kinds of seeds, 4 different kinds of seeds, all the time available. And it does cost quite a bit. One of my mixes is a woodpecker mix that includes various fruits and all kinds of assorted seeds that are already out of the shell. And it looks like it would be perfectly good eat for a human being. And I enjoy it because it changes the mix of birds. And then, of course, sunflower seeds, black coral sunflower seeds are the standby. If you have nothing else, that's the one to have. Millet is not preferred by most of the birds, but there's a few birds that like millet if you have enough room for it. And then thistle, if you want to have goldfinches. Also, I didn't put on here, another one I could put on winter is pine siskin. The pine siskin is a lesser known little bird that almost looks very similar to a goldfinch, kind of hard to identify, but they also like the thistle. So thistle will increase your range a lot. This paper that my mom is passing out talks about the Duncraft design feeder. They're kind of expensive, $75 or something, but they are squirrel proof. And they will last you for many years. And I would highly recommend making that investment in a Duncraft squirrel buster. I have 2 of them in my yard. Mom has several of them. They're very reliable. They're worth the money. If you buy something lesser, it may not work, and you'll just have wasted your money. But I know squirrels are a continual problem, and we could get on with that. But the Duncraft is one way to get around that. Okay.
I made it for everybody to not been there.
Now this is kind of it's almost distressful to me. We just barely opened the door on this, and it's hard to know in 1 hour where to put my priorities. You know, so what I'm hoping y'all got out of this today so far is that It's the knowledge that there's a difference between winter and summer, and the behavior changes, and the way, there's so many of these species, in the wintertime, they go into this group behavior, and they start moving around, foraging in groups. And this is kind of some of the joy in observing your backyard birds, is starting to observe those kind of little details. They're just not out there. Actually, instead of just 2 cardinals, there's a whole bunch of cardinals in the winter. Or another thing I'd like for you to be watching for, and it's still going on right now, is the feeding of the babies in your yard. Sometimes we forget. I want to make sure that you realize that a baby bird is the same size as the mom and dad, and in some cases has got virtually the same plumage by the time that they've left the nest. Birds are not like almost every other animal in the world. They mature extremely fast. But the way to tell them apart is if you see this twittering of the wings. There's sometimes a mouth of it, but there's this quiver with the wings. That's a baby bird.
Unless it's a cardinal, a female cardinal goes.
That's true. Yes, if we did.
Why are my cardinals bald right now?
Oh, that's a.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah, they're molting. It looks so awful. I have one that has nothing on her
I have
head.
several that have nothing on their head.
And
Little feathers up here.
and it looks like this gorgeous row around his, but they're not sick.
Okay.
They're just molting.
Kind of disturbing to look at.
And I don't know why all of them don't seem to look ugly like that. But some just really look ugly.
Did you have? Yeah.
Well, I had a cardinal that was being pursued by 2 other cardinals, and they were attacking him, and his little head was bare, and I was like, oh my goodness, they pull all his hair out.
I don't know.
I doubt that, but I
What
don't
was the
know.
behavior? They're just running him out of town?
Yeah, that's territorial behavior. In the summertime, you'll see birds chasing each other a lot, and they are very, very. Every bird is very territorial in the breeding. And now, by the way, they're right now. What has just happened is you're seeing baby birds in your yard. You're seeing round 2. When the weather's appropriate, they'll put out 2 broods, and in a few cases 3 in one season. So in my yard right now, I've got baby blue jays, baby cardinals, baby house finches, and I just recently had the catbird babies were just finished up. I really enjoyed watching that. By the way, I have I didn't talk about yet about suet. Suet is I love suet. That really adds to the number of birds that are coming in your backyard. And I have my suet placed very carefully in a maple tree. I have it so that there's a little limb right underneath it, right beside it. Some birds, like woodpeckers and nuthatches, are designed to hold on to the side of things, and suet seed is no problem for them. But there's a bunch of birds that like suet that are not designed to latch onto the side of a cage, and so they need a perch. So what I have, amazingly enough, with my suet, this spring I had a pair of summer tanagers every day in my backyard. I have every day mockingbirds, brown thrasher, catbirds, cardinals, strangely enough, eating suet because they can stand and eat it. And of course, you also get the nuthatch, and you get the wren, and you get chickadee. A lot of birds, birds that like meat.
There are perching birds, and there are birds that cannot perch. And so we don't have time to go through that, but
Right.
feeders, you need some platform feeder as well as some that can hang on.
The problem with a platform feeder, and I don't have one in my yard, sadly enough. And the problem with a platform feeder, it is almost impossible to keep squirrels away from them, unless you're lucky enough to have, like in my yard, there's no place where a squirrel would not leap on it from above. But Mom has an open area enough where she's got it on a pole with a raccoon guard underneath it, a metal raccoon guard, so they can't climb up the pole, and there's no tree close enough to where they can make the leap. So she's got a wonderful flat feeder that will really expand your birds if you got a table feeder. But in my yard, I've got so much covered, I can't figure it out. Yes.
I was pruning my cedar trees and leaving stubs because we have owls, and the owls like to sit on those stubby
Nice.
branches. But what I discovered the last couple of weeks is that Cooper's hawk also likes them young birds.
That's a shame.
They gotta earn a living.
More than balance. Yes, sir.
The branch you have on it, how far is it?
Oh, it's just right alongside it, so this is a little cage, it's just about an inch away. Inch away, yeah. And it's really changed everything, yes.
Were you going to address the question of what to do about the crackle?
Oh, okay.
All right. Other than banging at night in the bamboo?
You know, grackles, you know, I'm not really knowledgeable about how to, you might have any ideas on this. Grackles, they, if you have bamboo around, the problem is if blackbirds or common grackles, they like to roost in bamboo. And they can be a bit of a problem when they swoop in, and they're very aggressive, and all the birds leave when they come in. I have a handful of them come in and eat sunflower seeds in my yard, and occasionally they investigate the suet. I know that when you feed peanuts, the grackles like that, and I guess I don't have an answer for that. That'd be something you'd have to look into. It hasn't been a problem for me. They come in occasionally, and in the wintertime they come in sometimes and use the bird water bath, but I would never, they don't dominate my yard. It's a balancing act, yeah.
Is red-winged blackbird the same crackle?
No, well, it's a blackbird, but the red-winged blackbird is associated with water typically, and of course, it's not the same, it's a different species. It's the bird you would typically see in cattails, close to water, and they have that very distinctive call, but they're not the same. There's quite a few different, we have other blackbirds. The blackbird is a large family, actually, but the common grackle is the one we see the most of. That's what, when somebody says blackbird, what they mean is common grackle. Pretty big. But there's a larger one. There's a larger one, the great-tailed grackle, and the boat-tailed grackle, but we have very few of those. They can be found in farmland around here. I don't know that yet.
I used to live where there was some resident, large grackles, you know, the big long tail.
Yep, pretty great-tailed grackles, yeah.
And a person across the street had a chrome bumpers, you know, back when they had all these chrome bumpers. And that grackle would come up to the back and see their image, and they peck that bumper to death. They jump up and down and pet.
That's interesting. So, you know, we're over time already. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people are still using pesticides in their backyard. You want to say something about that?
You want to talk about, we have a question about pesticides in the backyard and how much damage that would be. Yeah, I'm not very knowledgeable about that. I certainly don't use anything like that in my backyard. That's got to take a toll. Some of the products that people put to make a manicured grass lawn, I just can't imagine that that's not a big problem. I don't know the facts. Once again, that gets above my scientific knowledge. And I know that they've tried, the ones that are available, they've tried to minimize their impact. I assume that I can't imagine.
Well, pollinators.
That'd be a good thing. There should be a whole program on that. It'd be good to talk about.
I want to tell you a quick story. I had a knee replacement for Christmas, and my brother doesn't break in. My brother and his wife came to visit, and this spring I was cleaning out my garden shed, and I found a granular insecticide. It killed over 100 bugs that was this big and had this much in it, and I nearly lost my mind.
Right.
Because I have a great bumblebee population. And I could not figure out where did this come from. So I went in the house and really fretted about it. This was like in March. And my brother did. And my bumblebee population was good this year. But apparently my dog had a few fleas, and they decided to take matters into their own hands while I was on drugs. So I was mortified. And I thought about you telling.
Yeah, that'd be it'd be good fun to get somebody who's knowledgeable about that talk. That wouldn't be me though.
It definitely is.
But you know, we had just for fun, we had a lot of people that have been playing with this name that bird. And fill in the blank with the appropriate bird. So For a bird that, for the word agurgitation, what is that?
Swallow.
Okay. Disease of horse's hooves? Good, yeah, okay. We didn't talk about, what were we talking about? Gauge of craziness?
Both of them.
Both of them, yeah, cuckoo, I love the cuckoo, by the way. Girl with red hair?
Redhead whipper.
Okay. Gone with the wind?
Bluebird.
That's kind of.
Kite. Kite, and we have those passing through.
Scarlet tanager.
With the wind. Oh.
Yeah, instrument for opening nuts.
Nutcracker.
Nuthead, Clark's nutcracker, would be good one, but of course, we don't have Clark's, that's a western bird. Mechanism for lifting. Okay. Oh yeah, Prince of the Church. That's good. And split by Lincoln.
Rail.
Very good.
I couldn't get him to understand what split rail was.
How many of y'all split rails?
All of us old folks have.